What is up, everybody? We're back here at King Film Sports for the full NFL 2024 season preview and predictions here. I'll be going through all 32 teams, giving you guys robust analysis and a record prediction, and then we'll be seeding my playoff bracket 1 through 7 in each conference, and then we'll be predicting NFC, AFC champions, and then my Super Bowl champion there. But before we get into it, I have to stress you guys, please subscribe if you guys are interested in the college football and NFL content. I've already released a bevy of college football videos, including season preview, week 0 and week 1 predictions and betting locks there. And we'll be doing similar things with the NFL this season with weekly videos here, predictions and recaps of the games. So stay tuned for all that. Make sure to like, subscribe if you support the content. So without further ado, let's get into it here. Started out, as always, in the AFC East, and no shocker here, I have the Bills at 11-6 winning this division here. I think Josh Allen has caught too much hate over the past few months and during last season. Yes, he does have a tumultuous playing style up and down, but he does have a lot of production here. I do think that he is a top 3 quarterback consensus in the league. Definitely the best quarterback in this division if you had to press me on it. And I do like that running back, James Cook. He had a couple of fumbles last year. Yes, that was a problem, but he is very prolific for this team here with explosive runs. Look out for him in fantasy. I think he could be a breakout talent, especially with the 12 personnel system that they're stressing this year. As they lost Stephon Diggs, they did draft Keon Coleman, and Khalil Shakir is always good in the slot. But I do think that they will be good running the ball, and I do think Dalton Kincaid will have a breakout season for them there. And I think that their regression on defense has been very much overstated. Von Miller basically did nothing for this team, and they still got a couple linebackers and drafted and picked up a few guys in the secondary. I do think that it will be a middle-of-the-pack defense, but with this high-flying offense and the production that they should have, I think that it will be good enough to win this division at 11-6 there, so I think they will scrape by and repeat their 11-6 season from last year, which gives them the number 1 spot in the division. Next, we go to the Dolphins. Have them going 10-7 this year, and the last 2 years have been similar stories for them. Get out to a hot start. Tua looks great. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle also looking good, and then a great ground game with Devon Achane, but then it all comes slowing to a halt. I have similar things happening here as they have a pretty tough schedule coming down the pike in the last 8 to 10 weeks, so I think that will slow them up here. It's a big season for Tua. He did already get paid, but these fans want a playoff win. I don't know if he's going to deliver it for them. I just do not think that they're any better than they were last year. They did replace the defensive coordinator, but they lost a few key pieces on that defense. So we'll see there. I think Tua has to make strides if they want to win this division. I just do not think that he's capable of that at this point with the limited arm talent there. So give me the Dolphins second at 10-7. And then in third, the wild card of this division and perhaps the entire league is the New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers. What would they have been last season? I think they probably could have made the playoffs if Aaron Rodgers played half decent, because Zach Wilson was absolutely horrible for this team and they still won 6 or 7 games. And the defense, pretty good, although it is aging a bit. That offensive line, very thin, but it is very good, that first layer. If they can just avoid some injuries there, they will be good. And then you have Garrett Wilson on the outside. So I think Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't have to have an MVP season, but if he can just be a slightly above average quarterback at this point and then just be clutch late in the games, this team will get to 10 wins and get a playoff berth there. But really, health is wealth there for this New York Jets team. If they deal with a ton of injuries like we've seen in the past, then it will be a rough go of it for them. And then, and last, you've got this New England Patriots team. I think that they are a big candidate for that number 1 pick next season, because I just do not think that Gerard Mayo is a great head coach. And really, they were a horrible team last year and did nothing to improve. They've got Jacoby Brissett starting at quarterback, or will it be Drake May or potentially Joe Milton later on? I have no clue for this team. Bereft of offensive talent, their offensive line isn't great, and then their defense seems to be getting worse. You obviously lost the mastermind of Bill Belichick, and then you ship Matthew Judon off to Atlanta. So I just really am not high on this Patriots team. I think it could be even worse than 4-13, to tell you the truth. This team could be 1-16 at 2-15. But I did predict them to go 4-13 there, as there always are a few upsets. So next, let's go to the AFC North here, where I've got the Bengals. And a slight shocker there to win this division. The Ravens are the obvious favorite, but I do think that they have a slightly easier schedule, and I think Joe Burrow will come back with a vengeance there. You remember last season, he started off really slow, was really bad in September, and they got off to a slow start. But then he started cooking in October and then beginning of November, and then he had the elbow injury on Thursday night in Baltimore. And I think that he will stay healthy this full season, and I think that he will deliver a good season for this Bengals team. I think Jamar Chase will come back with a vengeance as well, have a great season. And then really this offensive line has been making strides for them as well, and I do think that they have a decent ground game there. So I think that their offense will come back in blood, and then their defense always pretty good with Lou Anarumo. So I do think that this Bengals team narrowly edges out the Baltimore Ravens. I see some slight Ravens regression in the regular season. You guys remember that they went 14-3, and they really ended off the regular season in great form. But a few games before that, around the middle of the season, I thought that they got lucky, and they also did lose to a couple really bad teams here. The Ravens always lose at least one to the Steelers. They lost one to the Browns last year. They lost a really bad game to the Colts. So I don't know if this Ravens team can repeat their high-flying form in the regular season because they do have a very tough schedule here. And I'm not sure how much better the offense is going to be. Lamar Jackson, what's he going to be throwing through the air? I do like Monken, the offensive coordinator, in spite of that gaffe in the AFC Championship, only running the ball 6 or 7 times there. But they do have King Henry, so the Ravens doing very well in my power rating. Think that they're one of the best teams in the league, but yeah, very tough schedule there. Their defense is always going to be pretty good as well. Then you've got the Browns at 9-8. Not sure what to make of this team. They did go 11-6 last year with Joe Flacco at the helm for the last few games. Deshaun Watson coming back for this season. This is a make-or-break year for him, and I just do not know that he's got it here. So the jury's still out on this team. Great O-line, Nick Chubb coming back, some great offensive talent on the perimeter, but their defense was somehow really bad on the road, but then great at home. So I really just don't know what to make of them. Tough division, tough schedule, tough conference altogether in the AFC, so 9-8 for them there. And then bearing the brunt of all of those factors that I mentioned with the Browns, with the tough schedule and conference, it's the Steelers at 5-12 here. I know Mike Tomlin has never finished below 500, but this is the season, in my opinion. Have you guys looked at this schedule? It is one of the roughest schedules in the NFL, and then you don't even know who's going to start at quarterback for this team. I have a thought that it could just get very ugly. Could just go back and forth between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson will start out the season. He'll play bad. Then they'll go to Justin Fields. He'll play even worse. Then they'll have to put back Russell Wilson in. And at the end of the day, I just do not think that they'll keep winning all of these turnover battles in these close games because that's really what's gotten them to these winning records and the playoff berths in the last few seasons. It's not been great quarterback play, and I think that it's going to be even worse quarterback play this season. So I just see so much regression looming for the Steelers team. Maybe it's not 5 wins, but I still do not see them getting a winning record this year. Next, we go to a very peculiar division, the AFC South here, and obviously the darlings are the Texans. I only have them going 9-8, but I do see them winning this division. I do think that they are the most talented team in this division. I don't think that they should be as heavy favorites as they are coming into this one, though. I think Stephon Diggs is a bit overrated, which is why I thought the Bills would win their division without him there. But CJ Stroud, if he's the real deal here and doesn't deal with the sophomore slump, I mean, the league could be on notice, but I do price in a bit of regression for him there. But I do like D'Amico Ryans, their head coach. I think that they have a good defense there. And overall, a pretty easy schedule compared to some of the other teams in the AFC here. And I do think that they'll get a winning record within the division, potentially 4-2 or 5-1 there. But still only get to 9-8, which will be good enough to win the division. At 8-9, you've got the Jags. Trevor Lawrence here. Not sure what to make of him. I think that without the injuries, he's an above-average starter. He was injured in December and January, which is why they gagged away the division title last year to that Texans team. I do think that they have a bit of offensive talent, but there's really just nothing special about this roster here coming into this season. So it's going to be very interesting. I think if Lawrence is able to outplay Stroud, then they will be able to win this division. But as I mentioned, I just think that the other teams around them are getting better, and they're just remaining stagnant there. Do like Doug Peterson as their head coach, but I just do not see them going anywhere or improving. So give me them at 8-9. Then the Colts also at 8-9. I do really like their head coach, Shane Steichen, but I do think that they got a bit lucky last year, other than the last game where they had the halfback drop in the flat there to potentially beat the Texans and win the division. With Anthony Richardson this season, I'm not sure if he's going to stay healthy for all 17 games. He had a couple huge injuries just in the first month of last season and was sidelined the entire time. And I think he had a few good moments within those games, but people are stretching that out, thinking that he's going to be an elite quarterback this season. And I just do not know about that there. So I'm going to hold the Colts back to 8-9 here. Too many unknowns for that team, although they do have a few big pieces of talent there. If Anthony Richardson is the real deal, then we could see, but I am not sure of that. Then the Titans at 5-12. There's just so many other teams in the AFC that are great. I just can't predict this Titans team to do anything special. Will Levis was way too inconsistent last year, and they lost Derrick Henry, did gain a few other pieces of talent. They have Calvin Ridley, and they added a couple pieces of their defense, but really there's no direction with this team. Are they trying to tank? Are they going for it? I don't really know there, but they are just a lot less talented than some of these other teams in the AFC, so I have to predict them 5-12 with this brutal schedule that they have. Next, we go to the AFC West, where I've got the Chiefs at 11-6. And I do think that they win this division pretty easily here, as I just do not see these other teams as ultra competitive within this AFC conference. I do think that the Chiefs will make an effort to not sleepwalk as much as they did last regular season, but that's only natural that they'll just turn it on in the playoffs here, going for this three-peat. Travis Kelce, just a year older. Rashee Rice probably will deal with the suspension. Offensive line is decent. They've got Isaiah Pacheco, and then the defense, another year of experience. So I don't think that they'll be a lot worse than last season. But if you guys remember last season, it was a lot of hiccups down the stretch there. So we will see with this team, but I do think that with a tough schedule, it'll limit them to 11-6 there. At second, perhaps a big surprise, Broncos win total is around 5 or 5.5. Give me the over there. I know that's beginning to become a popular play, which I don't really like, to be honest, but I do think that Bo Nix is pretty good. Sean Payton evidently really likes him, and this Broncos team was competitive last year. They almost made the playoffs with Russell Wilson, and he was playing horrible, and then they went to Jarrett Stidham. So I think that with this opportunistic defense and some offensive talent here, and then that mile-high home field advantage, I think that that will all bode well here for this Broncos team, and I ultimately just think that they are slightly better than these other two teams, which I'll get to later. Here we go to the Ravens at 7-10. It's a lot like the Titans. I just do not see a lot of direction with this team. Are they trying to tank, or are they going for it? You've got Antonio Pierce as a head coach. I know the players like him, but I'm not sure all the value that he's adding to this team. You've got Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, the two quarterbacks here. I think that they'll both get playing time because it's just going to be bad. You've got Devontae Adams on the outside. I think he's going to be disgruntled at their lack of success here. And then they have Max Crosby, a couple other pieces on that defense, but really, I don't think that they have a whole lot of depth. So I do not think that their defense is going to be elite either. Their offensive line isn't great. So really just a mediocre team in the AFC. So 7-10 for them there. And then at last year, we've got the Chargers at 7-10. I know that might be a bit of a shocker for everyone else who's hyping up this Chargers team just because of Jim Harbaugh, but I do think that it will take a bit of time to coalesce here. Quentin Johnston is their best wide receiver, which says a lot about where they are on talent-wise. They did get J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards for the backfield, and Herbert, obviously a decent player in his own right, but he's dealing with an injury. Remember, he was injured last season as well, so that's beginning to become a pattern for him, and I don't think that their defense is special either, so I see a lot of similarities between them and the Raiders. I'm not going to act like Denver is so much better than these two, but I do think that with Sean Payton, he's the best head coach at this point. I do think that Harbaugh will build a good culture here over the long haul, but I'm not sure it all comes together for them in year one, so give me the Chargers at 7-10. Next, we get to the NFC East here. At first place, give me the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they had a generational choke job there in the last month of the season and then into the playoffs, but I do think that they will course correct here, get to 11-6. I don't think that Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback by any stretch, but I think he's better than what he played like in that last month. As I mentioned, they still do have a lot of talent, though they did lose Jason Kelce, so I'm not sure how the tush-push will look this year. Will it work fully? We'll see, but I do think that they will have a pretty good run game with Saquon Barkley, and they did bolster that defense with a few great selections, and then you already have the players who are first and second year, like Jalen Carter, getting better as well. So I do think that the regression for this team is a bit overstated, and it all really came out in December and January of last year, so hopefully they can improve this season. Nick Sirianni, I'm not sold on him as a head coach, but will he have to do much? I'm not sure, so I'll take the Eagles to get 11-6 there. Then Cowboys 10-7. I just see a bit of regression here as they didn't do anything really to get better. You've got an older Zeke Elliott as your number one back. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Their offensive line is getting worse. CeeDee Lamb, yes, at wide receiver, and a couple of other good talents there, but their defense didn't get a whole lot better. Still got problems with them in big games here, but a pretty easy schedule, so that will get them to 10-7, but I do think that they lose out on that NFC crown. Then you've got the Commanders at 6-11 here. I think that they'll be a feisty team. Maybe Jaden Daniels can show us something. Hopefully he can stay healthy, because with his running habits and inability to slide, I think that could be a bit of trouble here. He was taking some big hits at LSU, so we'll see. They've got Dan Quinn as their head coach. I don't think he's too special. I think he can run a decent defense here, but I'm not sure what he can do with this defensive talent that they have on the roster right now. It's pretty hollow there, so we'll see. But I do think that they edge out the Giants just because of better quarterback play and the potential of Jaden Daniels. Then at 4-13, I got the New York Giants. I mean, I am absolutely done with Daniel Jones here. He needs to be replaced. I don't know how he's built up this much equity within the franchise to get paid $45 million a year. And he really, I think, got saved that he was injured last year, because if he was healthy the latter part of the season, you would have really saw how bad he was. He had that one decent season a couple years ago with Brian Daboll where they had an easy schedule, got a bit lucky, got to the playoffs, played against a soft Vikings team, and won that game. But I just do not see it for this New York team. And their schedule is actually decently easy because they're in the NFC here, but I think that they're just so bad. And they lost Saquon Barkley. They did draft Malik Neighbors, have a couple of options on the outside, but I really see not much to do with their defense. Kayvon Thibodeau is good. They have a couple other pieces, but I just do not see it for them this year. I do think Brian Daboll is a decent head coach, but he ultimately can't do much with this Daniel Jones-led offense there. So I think they finish at an abysmal 4-13 there. Next, we get to the NFC North, where we started out with the Lions at 11-6. I know that a lot of people are making cases for other teams, the Packers or the Bears, to potentially win this division. But I do think that the Lions are the best team here, and their schedule is about comparable to the others. So I do think that Detroit finishes ahead here, and they really just didn't get worse at all from last season. If anything, they improved. Another year of Jared Goff within this system with a great offensive line. And it also must be mentioned they only play 3 outdoor games all season long, which is great for Goff. He doesn't deal well with the elements there. Another year with Ben Johnson, that offensive coordinator. He is great. He's going to be a great head coach someday. And Dan Campbell, another year of him with this defense and with the guys on the trenches, getting them motivated after that heartbreaking NFC Championship loss. I think that they will be ready to go this season, and I do think that it will be competitive, but they will win this division. Then next, you've got the Packers at 10-7. This is around where they finished last year. I do think that they got pretty lucky at the end of last year with some of those finishes with Jordan Love. I mean, we'll see if Jordan Love is truly the real deal, because he was very good in the second half of last season, but the first half was very ugly there. But as for the rest of this Packers roster, it was very young coming into last season, so they've all gained some experience. Those pieces on the outside, and then that defense, I think, could improve as well there. So we will see with this Packers team. Was it all a mirage in the second half? I don't really think it was, but I don't think that they are a necessarily elite team, so I've got them finishing in second. And then in third here, I thought that I'd be down on the Bears, but then I just predicted their whole schedule. It's decently easy, so I do have them coming out to this 10-7 record, which I don't necessarily love, because I do think that Caleb Williams will be a great player in this league for the next few years, but I'm not sold on him coming in and lighting everything on fire like other people seem to think. But I cannot deny their offensive talent with Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and then their offensive line seems to be getting better as well. And then Matt Eberflus really had this defense riding together last year. It was one of the best units in the league for the last couple of months of last regular season. So I do think that this Bears team sneaks into the playoffs at 10-7. And then in fourth, but still very competitive, give me this Minnesota Vikings team at 8-9. No, a lot of people were making a big deal about J.J. McCarthy out for the season with the torn meniscus, but I don't know that he was going to play all that much. I think Sam Darnold, he will make the occasional blunder, but I do think that he will be better than the quarterbacks they had in the last couple months of the regular season once Kirk Cousins went down. I think that he's better than Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins there, so I do think that he'll game manage a bit, make a few plays, and get this team into an 8-9 record. I do think that they will be competitive there with a decently easy schedule. I think they'll win some of these divisional games at home there with the Minnesota home crowd advantage. Next, we go to NFC South, where it's going to be very competitive at the top here. Atlanta making big moves, Matthew Judon, and then getting Kirk Cousins here. I do have them finishing 10-7. Wish they could have gotten another player on offense, not drafting Michael Penix to just be the backup, but I do think that Bijan Robinson will have a great second season here, and I think Kyle Pitts could break out. You've got Drake London, so just a bevy of offensive talent there. Their offensive line is decent as well, and then I think that their defense is a bit slept upon as well. It will really just come down to Kirk Cousins and this team on offense, so we will see there. Tied with them, but in second place due to tiebreakers, I've got the Saints at 10-7. Derek Carr was really cooking in the last few weeks of last regular season. We'll see if they can carry that forward into this season. I do think that they have a decent amount of talent on offense. And then their defense, they did acquire Chase Young. We'll see. He seems to be somewhat of an enigma so far in his NFL career. Can he turn it on for that team? And then their linebacking core and secondary is pretty good as well. So I do think that they will be a competitive team here and finish at 10-7. Then at 8-9, bit of regression looming for this Buccaneers team. Just do not think that they did a whole lot to get better. Shaq Barrett obviously retires on defense, which is a big blow. And I do think that they have a decent wide receiver core, but it's getting a bit older, and I'm just not sold on Baker Mayfield being an elite quarterback. Sure, potentially average, but I just think that they have a worse roster than the Falcons and Saints, which is why I have them going 8-9 there. And then the Panthers at 5-12. This is actually an improvement upon last season where they were just dreadful. I do think that Bryce Young could get a few things going this season. Hopefully he just stays healthy the full time so we can see if he is potentially a long-term starter in this league here. I just think that they're due for a few more wins, but still this roster just is not great. So we will see there. I have them finishing with 5 wins. And then Lastly, the NFC West, I have it essentially repeating how it has the last couple of seasons. Give me the Niners to go 12-5 here. They do have a pretty brutal schedule, and then you obviously have the roster concerns. Trent Williams still holding out. I think he'll get paid pretty easily, but Brandon Ayuk, we'll see what happens there if he's actually on the team. I personally don't think it matters much. You've got Debo, and then you've got a couple of rookies, Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, I think could be great within the Shanahan system. You've obviously got Juwan Jennings and then George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. Can they all stay healthy? A lot of these players within the core are aging a bit coming into this season. So Purdy, last year of his deal, this will be a big one for this team, but I ultimately just think that they're the best team in this division. Drake Greenlaw will come back after a couple of months, and I do think that their defense will be pretty good coming into the season. They acquired Devondre Campbell there as well. And then next, you've got the Seahawks at 9-8. They do just have an easier schedule than the Rams coming into the season, and I think that those two teams are about equivalent, so that's how they ended up finishing. Not sold on Geno Smith, but they have done a lot to bolster that offense. They've obviously got a great wide receiver trio, and then their offensive line has been gaining experience the past couple of years. I'm really sold on Mike McDonald, their head coach. I think that he's a great defensive mind, so I think that their defense will be a lot better than it was in the last couple of years under Pete Carroll. So I think that Geno Smith will hold them back from being an elite team, but I do think that they finish at a 9-8 record there. Then we've got the Rams at 8-9, and I just think that their season last year, over the last couple of months when they picked up steam, was a lot of patchwork. They did lose a lot in Aaron Donald on that defense. I know that they did draft a lot of front seven players to replace him, but I just do not know that it's going to work. Their secondary already wasn't great last year, and they did just get dominated physically by the Lions in that game. It was really just the mastery of Stafford that kept him in there. I think it'll take a great season from Stafford, and remember, he hasn't been healthy for a full season since that Super Bowl season there, so we will see if he can stay healthy that full time. Puka Nacua could be another great season for him. Then you've obviously got Cooper Kupp there as well and Kyron Williams. But this offensive line is a bit average for my like. And then Stafford, just another year onto his body there. So we'll see if he's able to stay healthy. And then Cardinals 5-12. I do like Jonathan Gannon, their defensive coordinator, and Kyler Murray should be healthy this full season, so we will see. Maybe they can be a bit more frisky than this, put up a bit more than 5 wins, but pretty tough schedule for them there, so I only have them finishing at 5-12, but it would be good to see if they were a surprise team, came out of the woodwork there, and had a few more wins. So with that being said, went through all of the divisions. We'll now go through my playoff picture and my playoff predictions here. So first, we started out in the AFC, where we have the Bills, as I mentioned, the number 1 seed at 11-6. They went out on the tiebreakers over the Chiefs and Bengals here, although it's a 3-way tie here. Very scrunched, no elite records really within the AFC here, so it allows this Bills team to get the number 1 seed there. Then the Chiefs 11-6, Bengals 11-6, Texans 9-8 there, pretty weak record, but they will win the division. Then the Ravens, very tough wildcard team there at 10-7, and then you've got the Dolphins and Jets there at 10-7, and a lot of good teams in the AFC especially that finished with 10-7 or 9-8 records that just got held out. So here for my AFC playoff predictions, I have the Bills hosting the AFC Championship. I've got them winning the divisional round. And then I've got the Ravens going on a big run here. I think that they go into Houston, and like last year, they beat the Texans, knocked them out of the playoffs. And I do think that they will advance to the AFC Championship to play the Bills, although it will be in Buffalo. Give me this Ravens team to get revenge. I think that they are able to win the AFC this year. I think Lamar Jackson and Monken, their offensive coordinator, have gained that requisite experience. They've added Derrick Henry. I think that they're just going to run the ball, pound the rock to success, and I think that their defense will be better than it was last year in the playoffs, so I do think that they advance to the Super Bowl there, although I do have them being a wildcard team going into it. Then in the NFC, I have the Niners at the number 1 seed and the Lions at the number 2 seed. Now, I know a lot of people will just be saying, oh, that's so chalk. Why would you just have a repeat of last year? It's even in the same venue in San Francisco here. If you just go through these matchups of what I predicted, I mean, you've got the Lions versus the Bears. Although it is a divisional matchup in Detroit, rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, I've got Lions winning that one. A couple of the other matchups, Packers-Eagles in Philadelphia, Falcons-Cowboys. I just think that the Niners and the Lions are the best 2 teams, and they'll both have home field advantage coming into that game. And ultimately, within that one, very competitive last year. I do have the Niners winning that one yet again, so that brings us to a Ravens-Niners Super Bowl, the 2 number 1 seeds from last year. And in that one, give me the Niners to win this one. I just think that Brock Purdy, in his last year under his rookie deal, this team really needs to win a Super Bowl. When that's the case, hopefully they can stay healthy to do that. And I do think Kyle Shanahan finally gets his first ring there against John Harbaugh in the Super Bowl. So with all that being said, let me know what you guys think of my predictions in the comments down below. Are my expectations the same as yours for your favorite team? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.